At this time, I'd like to reintroduce you to James Kilborn, our DA's candidate forum.
Gentlemen, if you'll come on up. We've set this up again. As I told y'all, this is not a forum. This is a courtroom. So we've got the mics. The mics are on, and you guys can choose whichever table, and then we'll get started.
What about Rule 12? Stay seated, aren't we?
Well, unfortunately, the judge is not here. I checked in his chambers just a second ago, and he's not back there either. Again, I'm James Kilborn. I'm President-elect of the Buncombe County Bar and a partner at Douglas, Kilborn & Stahl. I understand this is the only forum for district attorneys this primary season. I'm not sure whether I'm honored or intimidated by that responsibility. To start, I want to let everyone know that we have a very congenial bar in Buncombe County, and I consider each of these gentlemen to be a personal friend of mine. While this primary has been contentious, this forum will be conducted as a respectful discussion of important issues. And as lawyers and as individuals, we understand the importance of the district attorney's office for the state and for the county. As we said before, each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement to introduce themselves. And in this case, I'm going to allow Ben to go first because Ben appears at the top of my ballot. I didn't have time to draw lots before y'all got here. But the time here will hold up 30 seconds remaining, and we'll hear, she'll let you know when the time runs out. After the opening statements have been made, questions will then be posed by myself. As before, the questions are submitted by members of the bar in addition to questions created by the moderator. And none of the candidates or anyone else knows what questions are going to be asked during this forum. All candidates in this case are going to be given 2 minutes because we have fewer folks who have to answer. To answer each question, there will be several questions posed to a particular candidate with a follow-up posed to the other candidate. So sometimes it's going to be for both of you, sometimes it'll be one of you with a follow-up to the other. Each of you have 2 minutes to answer your question. If the other candidate is addressed, because obviously sometimes it raises issues to one or the other, there is a potential to have 1 minute to rebut if that would be necessary during the course of the question. If any member of the audience desires to pose a question, as you saw, we ran out of time last time before we got through all the questions I had. But feel free to put questions in the ballot. If we can get to those, we will. And then at the end, each candidate is going to be given 2 minutes for a closing statement. Again, we thank the audience for holding the applause during the debate during the forum for the sheriff's candidates, and we ask again that you hold applause until the end of the forum, thereby leaving more time for questions. Now, the district attorney's race in the new 40th prosecutorial district, which is identical to the 28th judicial district, includes all of Buncombe County, and there are no current candidates for the Libertarian or the Republican parties. So one of you gentlemen are likely to be the district attorney come January 1st if there are other candidates. So, Mr. Ben Scales and Mr. Todd Williams are your candidates here today. Mr. Scales, you want to go forward with a 2-minute opening statement, sir?
Sure, thank you. I'm going to deviate from my normal stump speech to offer condolences to the families affected by the shooting last night in West Asheville. This one hit my wife and really hard. My wife is sitting here in the front row, Kate. 2 of the victims who are now in the hospital were students at Isaac Dixon Elementary School, where this is the first year we haven't had a child at Isaac Dixon since 2005. I was president of the PTO there, and we were heavily involved in the Dixon community. We're hurting from that. One of the children who was killed was on the track team at Asheville Middle School, and we had 2 kids that also ran track at the middle school. And we have a son that goes to middle school now. This event, our community tonight is really in need of healing, and this event underscores the need for that and highlights the difficulties that the next district attorney is going to face. And I'm running for district attorney because I believe that real progressive criminal justice reform can heal, empower, and unite this community. Thank you.
Well, those are very appropriate remarks.
up the seriousness of the work that the district attorney's office does and law enforcement in our community. And thank you to those who responded to that very tragic situation last night. In addition, I want to thank the Child Advocacy Center and our other nonprofit partners who serve domestic violence victims and children in these circumstances. There were survivors, and they're going to need a lot of assistance from our community. Again, it's a very tragic situation, and it's the kind of work that we do in the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office every day. My name is Todd Williams. I've had the pleasure of serving as district attorney, as your district attorney for the last 3¼ years. I'm a board certified specialist in criminal law. I've served as a public defender and capital defender at every level in this courthouse. I've represented folks from traffic all the way up to homicide, on both sides of the courtroom now. I have unparalleled experience as a criminal lawyer and as your district attorney. I offer a depth of experience and human perspective that I'm going to ask you all to consider, and hopefully have a complete opportunity to demonstrate tonight in this forum.
Thank you, sir. The ethical rules governing prosecutors say that the duty of a prosecutor is to seek justice, not merely to convict. In what way do you believe that you are or would do justice as the district attorney? Todd?
Well, thank you for that question. We have created new programs that institutionalize exactly that concept prior to January 1st, 2015, generally your choices when you came to court, if you were charged with a crime, were limited to pleading guilty or not guilty or making some other form of admission that would create a sanction. We have created new programs that address many of the concerns that are floating in our popular culture. School to prison pipeline. We've created a juvenile misdemeanor diversion program that goes so far as to divert kids completely out of the criminal justice system. They don't even get charged. Through opioid diversion, through other programs, Veterans Treatment Court, we are constantly working in the district attorney's office to give folks opportunities to restructure their lives, heal, and get training and get on the right path. Our goal is to always, in each and every case, do justice. That's the pole star. We're not in the district attorney's office trying to not put notches on our belt and keep score.
Mr. Scales, in what way do you believe that you would do justice as the district attorney?
Well, one of the things the district attorney is supposed to do is provide notice to defendants and their counsel when an officer has been shown to be less than truthful, or there's been other evidence that's come to light that may cast aspersions or doubt on that officer's testimony. And that's something I would want to start doing that the current DA is not doing, and that's providing this type of notice under Giglio and Brady to defendants and their attorneys. And this is not about getting convictions. This is about providing exculpatory materials to the defendant so that actual justice can be served.
1 minute follow-up. Are you providing Brady and Giglio material?
We do provide Brady and Giglio material. We provide Brady material as a regular course of business in each and every case that we prosecute. Giglio material is made available on a case-by-case basis. It's a trial right, and that certainly has been made available and will continue to be made available as it's our constitutional obligation under Rule 3.8.
Mr. Scales, Chicago District Attorney Kim Fox recently released 6 years worth of raw data regarding felony prosecutions in her office in Chicago, consisting of 45 million sortable, searchable data points, spanning tens of thousands of cases from investigation to resolution. Would you commit to making such data publicly available concerning your felony and misdemeanor prosecutions?
Yes. As a matter of fact, that Ms. Fox's program is a blueprint for what I would do here. I believe that the transparency that she's providing is exactly what I would like to do here. I want to be able to provide data that will allow the public to track a case from intake through charging all the way through trial and sentencing, so that we can see exactly what the office is doing, how long it's taking them to do it, what kind of plea offers are being given, what type of sentences are being imposed. I think it's crucial for the public to have that type of information so that they can determine what is happening in this building. I believe right now it's like a black box and nobody can tell what's going on. Sometimes you can't even find out what a court date is. And I want to make sure that the doors of that are wide open.
Mr. Williams, same question.
All that data presently is publicly available to the clerk's office and the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts. We're an office of 35. We are engaged with the provision of services for victims and prosecution of cases in this courtroom. We simply do not have resources to manage that kind of data and throughput to the public. However, we have created an online portal that has, increased the accessibility of our office to the public. It's created an interface both with the bar and the public that I think is opening up the office in a new way. The Citizen Times has lauded our office in the past in regard to our transparency efforts. In an editorial, January 4th, 2017, said that we were a model for other agencies in the county, and also in regard to an officer-involved shooting in 2016. It's certainly a laudable proposal that DA Fox has endeavored to advance.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Williams, let me ask you, people cannot help but notice there are two male candidates on the stage. And do you believe that women bring important skills and perspective as prosecutors? And what efforts are you making, and will you continue to make, to encourage women and empower and promote female prosecutors within your office?
Well, there was a stretch where I believe I hired 3 straight female ADAs since January 1st, 2015, and we're very proud to have them on staff. We have recently advanced a female ADA to senior status in our office, who's done very high quality work. Right now, I can't form a very quick census of who we have in the office. I would say at least 40% of our ADAs are female. And I will commit to continue to give female ADA candidates, applicants, every consideration for the position.
Do you believe they bring anything special to the office?
They certainly do. They bring a perspective and empathy and quite often a hands-on victim. They're very good with victims, quite frequently. This has been my experience.
Mr. Scales, how would you promote female prosecutors in your office, and what efforts would you make to promote them both through the hire and through the process of promotion?
Well, I think that women lawyers are often better than men lawyers in many regards. That's an easy question, because I want to hire the best lawyers that I can find to work for me, and I want to make sure that they reflect the diversity of the community. It's not just women and men here. I would like to see at least one African American district attorney, assistant district attorney, and it would be great if women ran for this office, and African Americans, Latinos, all races should be represented there, because we have all races that are represented in our community.
Do you believe that they bring any specific skills that would assist your office?
Everybody is different. I believe that everybody has different skills they bring to the office, and I would concur that there are certain times that a woman prosecutor may be better suited for a certain case than a male. And so I can't speak specifically to anything that they bring. I don't look at people that way, I guess. I look at what kind of lawyer they are. And if they're a good lawyer, that's gonna come out, whether they're a male or female.
Mr. Smith, what would your policy be regarding wrongful convictions? How would you review convictions from within your own office?
I want to have an in-house conviction review unit that looks at whether or not convictions were wrongfully obtained, whether or not there were constitutional violations or statutory violations in the way the evidence was presented, in the way the evidence was shared with the defense. And I want to also look at sentencing in that same regard, because I believe we may have some sentences which are unjust. And that I want to be clear and transparent on that, and I want to devote significant resources within the office to conviction and sentencing review.
Since there are only finite resources in the office, would that necessarily take away resources from prosecuting new crimes?
Absolutely. It would take, and I plan to take it away from marijuana cases.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
I look forward to that.
Mr. Williams, what is your policy regarding wrongful convictions and reviewing convictions that come from your own office?
Well, North Carolina does have a conviction integrity unit. It's called the North Carolina Commission on North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission. It's a statewide commission. I would not create a conviction integrity unit that's dedicated to that kind of thing within the office. I believe it's unnecessary. We have a great wealth of experience in our senior staff, and when we get a case and a motion for appropriate relief that requires review, we roundtable. We sit down, but we don't have a specialized procedure or a unit that's segmented off that would create some kind of conflict of interest. Our goal generally is to pursue justice in the courtroom. Now, we have, in the last 3 years, we've handled, Horace Shelton was an habitual felon that we consented to, actually it was a governor's clemency petition. Philip Davis, a gentleman was convicted by an all-white jury and was placed on death row. There were some procedural issues. We consented to relief there. He was transferred to the general population, serving life without parole. And then in regard to the Innocence Commission cases stemming from Wilcoxon and Caganeira, we consented to relief for 3 African-American defendants. Setting that aside, we consent to MARs pretty regularly to do justice, to clear criminal convictions, to right wrongs in the system, all the way through petty traffic citations to first-degree murder and death penalty cases. This is something that we handle routinely in the office, and I don't believe that a specialized unit is necessary.
As you both alluded to at the beginning of our discussion, we've buried more children as a result of domestic violence. Mr. Williams, what more do you think you could do to combat domestic violence in your office as a district attorney?
Well, this is an ongoing project. Here in the last 3 years, we've created the Family Justice Center, and this is evolutionarily, perhaps it's revolutionary in terms of the way we handle domestic violence in North Carolina. It's the second center that opened in the state, Alamance County being the first, and it really the goal is to provide wraparound services for victims. We have an attorney and victim services coordinator in the Family Justice Center so that we're there to create a relationship and establish a relationship with victims, because we need that victim in court. In order to hold an offender accountable, quite often, the only means to get evidence admitted into court and to prosecute the case is to have that victim sitting next to the prosecutor in court. So we're doing our best to create relationships, and we are monitoring how we do. And this is an ongoing project. We have leadership team meetings very frequently, and here in the very near future, I think we're going to continue to strategize and ensure that we are on the right path in regard to using that resource that we recently created at the Family Justice Center.
Mr. Skills, what would you do to combat domestic violence if you were elected?
I've done quite a bit of work with domestic violence victims through physical legal services. I take on a large number of those cases pro bono and have worked closely with victims of domestic violence. And I've worked with members of the District Attorney's Office who've helped me with evidence that they've gathered through parallel criminal proceedings. And I believe that that type of collaboration could happen even more. I think that we're all trying to protect the victims from what happens in these domestic violence situations. It's really hard to predict these cases, but I believe that if we're more focused on how these incidents start and where things go from the initial domestic violence incident, I believe we can do a better job of predicting when something like what happened last night was going to happen. The facts are still coming out, but it seems to me like that there was at least a hint that something like this was going to go on, and I'd like to see a little more attention to the victims when they file these motions.
Turning, if you can, to immigration for a minute. As you both know, criminal convictions can have devastating effects on immigrants far beyond any statutory guidelines that the state will put on a particular offense. Mr. Skiff, how would you work with the immigrant community to preserve their ability to apply for relief, either MARs, diversionary programs that avoid admission to guilt that might lead to their deportation?
What I would like to do is, again, there's a district attorney in Philadelphia right now. His name is Larry Krasny, and he has created within his office an immigration council that is separate from the rest of his staff, and that council is specifically focused on people whose deportation, people who could be deported, whose immigration status could be affected by a criminal conviction, and provides counsel to those defendants. The other thing I want to make sure is that witnesses and victims within the immigrant community are heard, and that they feel safe, and that they feel that they can work with the district attorney's office to make sure that justice is afforded to them. Because right now, many people in the immigrant community feel scared to talk with law enforcement. They feel scared to talk with the district attorney's office about their cases because they fear deportation or detention. And so it's part and parcel of the same thing. We have to recognize that each person that comes into the criminal justice system has their own set of needs and vulnerabilities. And we, as people who are charged with dispensing justice, not just obtaining convictions, but dispensing justice, we have to be sensitive to all those contingencies.
Mr. Williams, how do you or how would you continue working with the immigrant community on these issues?
Well, one of the motivating factors in creating the Justice Resource Center and the diversion programs that we've created over the last 4 years was that prior to 2015, when the courthouse had no way, our system here had no way to work with immigrants in terms of, we were stuck repeatedly in terms of, you could do deferred prosecution, or the DA would offer deferred prosecution, or nuisance court. Both of those required an admission. INS would be looking for, was there an admission? Did the court impose a sanction? And if you're a lawyer on the other side of the courtroom, you couldn't advise your client because you're stuck in a morass of how is INS going to interpret this conviction? What's going to happen to my client? So I really felt like we had to have new options for how to dispose of cases in the courthouse, and that's why we created diversionary programs where we don't require an admission, we don't require a plea, we don't require anything formal in the court. It's voluntary. And if you go through the diversion program, we're enforcing the law, and and on the back end you get a dismissal in the interest of justice, which is just like a dismissal for any other reason. This is emblematic of my effort to do justice and not merely convict. And we have a separate agency now, the Justice Resource Center, and we have Buncombe County, right across the street, who has a public information office that can push that message out, hopefully in English and Spanish and in other languages as appropriate in our community, so that everybody knows that we have this resource. It's on the 15th floor, this is the 5th floor. It's on the 15th floor where the Buncombe County Jail used to be housed, and I think it's emblematic of the transformation that we've seen here in this courthouse, creating a place of opportunity and recovery rather than just penalties, and penalties that sometimes lead to deportation.
As a yes/no follow-up, would you give notice to all plea agreements that defendants should seek legal advice, potential imminent consequences where applicable? Would you, sir?
Absolutely.
Mr. Williams?
We take it very seriously, yes.
Turning as we might have expected we would to the very serious and very traumatic video of the Johnny Rush incident. Mr. Williams, several members of the bar wanted to know why you didn't call the SBI immediately upon seeing the video of the encounter between Officer Hickman and Johnny Rush. You have said in public that you only saw a portion of it, but the entire video was 8 minutes long. Why did you not immediately call the SBI, or why did you not watch the entire video when it was brought to your attention?
Well, to understand, well, let's understand that in the future, there can be no delay in reporting this to the district attorney's office. There has to be clear communication between the DA's office and APD or any other law enforcement agency in our county. We also need to understand that no one's above the law, and that when there is a delay, we might have a denial of justice. To understand this situation, I believe you have to review the history here in Buncombe County in regard to APD. APD is a law enforcement agency that's subject to the sheriff has plenary authority and control over hirings and firings and terminations in his staff, but the APD is subject to the Civil Service Board. And this event happened August 24th or 5th, and officers came to our office on September 15th and represented to us that an investigation was underway. We were not given notice that the officer's badge and gun was taken 3 weeks prior to that. So that's the first delay in moving the case in the direction that we need to go. And I'm being very careful about the words that I choose pursuant to Rule 3.8. In hindsight, in moving forward in the future, in cases of excessive force, we will communicate to ensure that an immediate referral to the SBI is made so that we're not stuck. The second unpredicted thing that happened in this case was that the SBI refused to investigate the matter when we did make a referral for investigation.
That's time, sir.
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
There can be no self-investigation.
Mr. Scales, you have said, a follow-up on the same subject, you have said that you didn't need more than the video of the encounter between Hickman and Rush to proceed with the criminal prosecution. Will it be your practice to ask your office's investigator to swear out warrants for criminal offenses based solely on video without further investigation?
Of course not. But the video is enough to begin an investigation, and the North Carolina Conference on District Attorneys has a best practice guide that mandates that as soon as there's an excessive force complaint, which there was in this case, that the SBI should be called in to start an investigation, and that was not done. Mr. Williams wants to throw the APD under the bus on this one, and it was clearly within his office's purview to do that. He had all the opportunity he needed to see all of the video and to continue with an investigation with his own staff and to call in the SBI, but he didn't. And I appreciate that he's changing his policies in hindsight, but it's a little too late now, because what has happened is this incident has exploded in our community. It's caused incredible grief and agony and pain and distrust. It builds further distrust between law enforcement and the community that could have been solved, could have been healed, and we could have empowered the community in a way that didn't occur. And I'm sorry, but that's just not a good enough excuse.
Well, it's not the case that the DA's office can do the investigation. We're a prosecutorial agency. We're not shielded by sovereign immunity. If the DA's office is going to blur the investigation and prosecutorial roles, I think you're going to run afoul of some very serious ethical obligations that will jeopardize careers. And that's just not, the DA's office is constitutionally limited to be a prosecutorial agency. Simply put.
Did you want to respond?
I don't believe that they're limited that way. I believe that they can investigate and they can call in investigations, and they can, that's why you have investigators on your staff.
They're litigation support investigators.
Mr. Scales, what would you have done with respect to viewing the Hickman Rush video to carry out your Brady and Giglio obligations as the district attorney? And when would you have done it?
Way sooner than he did, which, as far as I know, defendants have still not been advised of this incident. The defense counsel that had cases that were pending at the time of this incident still have not been provided Giglio letters with this information. It's baffling to me why it still hasn't happened. I would have done it far sooner.
Did you wish to respond?
Well, we are not going to proceed on any of Chris Hickman's cases. So we have not issued Giglio letters because we're not going to offer him as a witness. So therefore, we're not obligated to provide that testimony. If we're going to offer him as a witness, we would issue that letter. That's the way that works. So there's not been any violation of any rule of ethical conduct or any other obligation of the DA's office.
Mr. Williams, why did you, some of the bar members have asked, why did you refuse to dismiss the case against Anthony DeSamaro after you, let me ask you, Mr. Williams, law enforcement frequently detects the odor of marijuana, quote, and uses that as probable cause to then search the vehicle and other property. These searches sometimes result in the discovery of illegal possessed firearms, hard drugs, or other illicit items. Will you prosecute cases that simply originate from smelling marijuana?
Yes.
Question to you, sir.
Maybe not. Because I'm not going to prosecute the simple possession of marijuana. It is going to be probable cause from the officer's mind, and it depends on what is found. If all they find is more marijuana, then probably not. Now, if they find a bloody knife that was used in a murder, then yes, I am going to prosecute it. And because then we have a real victim and a real crime that we're prosecuting. And the smell of marijuana still is probable cause of a criminal act in North Carolina. And I can't change that. But at the same time, I'm not going to let people go just because that marijuana was the reason that they got caught.
Mr. Scales, in addition to being a lawyer, you're also a noted songwriter. One of your most famous songs, and most profitable song, as I understand, is called Growing Marijuana in My Yard,
Yes, it is.
which ends with the following lyrics. Anyone can grow it in the yard. I could show you how, it ain't hard. Never mind the president, let's overgrow the government and all grow marijuana in our yards. Do you believe that having written this song, it would affect the public's view of you as a district attorney?
I hope it makes them love me even more. It's poetic license, is what it is. There's the song starts off with me talking about planting the seeds and growing the plant, and it goes through me being arrested for the plant, and then there's redemption at the end. So the song is very profitable. I've made hundreds of dollars off it.
But do you believe that the highest law enforcement officer in Buncombe County can have a song where he basically advocates criminal acts?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because let's throw it back 100 years. Okay, if I was singing a song about freeing slaves, I would think I would have the same level of support among certain people in Buncombe County as I have with a law that is as unjust and unfair and unwarranted as the prohibition on marijuana. And I will never stand down from that belief.
Mr. Williams, what do you think? Do you think it would affect his ability to be the top law enforcement officer in Buncombe County?
I'm going to leave that to voters.
Mr. Williams, let me ask you, what's the worst decision you've made as a prosecutor over the last 3.5 years? What do you feel the worst about?
I feel like we've done amazing work at the DA's office over the last 3 years. We really strive to do justice in each and every case. I don't want to create the impression that we're infallible by any means. There mistakes have been made here and there, but we do what we can to correct them. And we're doing what we can to ensure that we have procedural justice in our court system, and it's a very challenging endeavor for the DA's office, and it's been a fantastic opportunity to serve Buncombe County.
Let me ask you, Mr. Gist, I'll reverse the question. What do you believe is the best thing that he has done in office in the last 3.5 years?
Can I take the whole 2 minutes to think of it?
Do you think he's done anything right?
I'm sure he has. I'm just going to have to think about it because I've been in the other mode for so long.
I mean, he's been your district attorney.
He has prosecuted a lot of serious cases and has achieved convictions. He has, well, I'll tell you the best thing that he's done. And it's something that Rodney Hasty has started. And that's the minor matter Fridays, where attorneys are able to bring their lower level cases to the district attorney's office, and we're usually able to work them out in a way that effectuates justice very quickly. And I think that's a great program, and I intend to continue with it.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, Mr. Skills, what do you believe your office could do to combat the opioid crisis and to help those who are addicted to controlled substances receive treatment and avoid the scourge of opioids in the future?
I want to start a safe injection site here in Buncombe County where people who are addicted to these opioids can come to a safe place, can bring the drugs that they have, they can be tested to make sure that they're not laced with fentanyl. There can be a medical professional on staff to make sure that they're not going to overdose, and if they do overdose, we'll have Narcan there to reverse the effects of the overdose. We're going to have clean needles. We're going to have protection by law enforcement to make sure nobody's being arrested and to make sure nobody is selling any drugs in this facility. But it's a place where we can make sure that people have access to the resources that they need to seek treatment and get them on their way so that they're not shooting up. Right now, people are buying heroin in bulk with their friends. They get together, they have one needle in their share. And sometimes somebody will overdose. Sometimes somebody will get, everybody will end up with whatever disease that one of them has. And I want to have a safe injection site. The other thing I want to do is I want to go after the companies that sell these medicines in our community. And I'm talking about the big companies like Purdue Pharma. I want to go after doctors that overprescribe these medicines that get people hooked in the first place. Because right now, street dealers are bearing the brunt of this. They're the only ones that are getting prosecuted. The little guys that are selling dime bags on the corner. And those people are not the problem. You can arrest and send all those people to jail, and there's going to be a new one coming right behind it. But if we could stop at the top, we could get to the root of the problem.
Mr. Williams, what have you done in the last, during your term, and then what would you do in the future to combat the issues of opioid?
Well, we've done two things that are really core, well, very closely related to our prosecution of these cases, and it's to create Veterans Treatment Court and to create the opioid diversion program. I love Veterans Treatment Court because it provides wraparound services to vets, it provides psychological PTSD, TBI type treatments, together with many vets have pain management issues that lead them into the use of these substances. A vet can also get physical therapy and other non-pharmaceutical means of alleviating their situations. The opioid diversion program is free. It's a 9-month program where an individual who's charged with a low level of drugs can go into a peer-to-peer program and hopefully get started on a path of recovery and get their case dismissed. What we're going to continue to do is we're going to continue to reach out to the community, our nonprofits in our community, and collaborate. We have a track record of doing that over the last 3 years in regard to some pretty intractable issues: domestic violence, child abuse, sexual abuse in our community. And we're going to do this. We're going to continue to tackle this opioid problem by reaching out, and we've got great wealth of community resources that we need to bring to the courthouse, and we have a platform to do it upstairs on the 15th floor of the Justice Resource Center. We just started that. That's just been inaugurated in the last 7 or 8 months. We need to flesh out the programming up there, and the sky's the limit, or at least the 15th floor.
Mr. Williams, changing the subject slightly. Media reports from last summer detailed a dramatic increase in the crime rate for Asheville. In 2016, murder was up 33%, aggravated assaults up 30%, rape offenses nearly doubled, and the overall crime rate rose 21%. Jamie Markham's School of Government blog noted on March 15, 2018, that Buncombe County is tied for the lowest rate of felony convictions per capita in the state. It is perceived that your office tries fewer felony cases and offers genuinely more lenient pleas than your predecessor. Do you feel like your approach is working, or are these two statistics not related?
Well, in regard to stats, in regard to homicide, there's a lot of fluctuation because if you go from 1 or 2 homicides in a year up to 10, all of a sudden you have a very large deviation in standard deviation. So I think we need to track that long term. Concurrently with the stats that you're referencing, we've had an ongoing dialogue here in the community where there's been increased advocacy for, reducing contacts with law enforcement and certain neighborhoods. And I guess this goes to the issue of race equity in law enforcement and policing. But while we've been having that discussion, we we've had a 30 to 40% increase in violent crime in impacted, I guess, low upper mobility communities here in Asheville. It's really something that we need to, again, we need to really, as a community, look at globally from all different perspectives: government, business, clergy, the DA's office, and law enforcement, to get a handle on what is really happening.
Mr. Scale, how would you change your office in the face of rising crime rates if this trend continued?
Well, the things that I want to do are, I want to target the crimes that matter most, and I want to make sure that we get the people who are doing the violence in this community out of this community. And if we can shift the priorities and the culture of the office away from the things that his office has been doing and target the crimes that matter most, we can get more felony convictions, we can increase public safety, we can improve the relationships that law enforcement has in the community, we can improve the relationships that the DA's office has with law enforcement and vice versa, and we can help, all these things need to work together to improve public safety.
So your office has 35 public defenders or somewhere around there, 35 employees.
Okay.
And everything that you put effort on is something you have to take effort away from. You're not going to be able, are you going to be able to start all these task force, start all this effort on violent crime just by eliminating marijuana prosecutions?
No.
So how are you going to do it?
It's going to be a whole lot of different things. I will offer low plea offers. The plea offers that I'm going to offer are going to be at or below the sentencing guidelines. They're going to make it very difficult for defendants to say no to pleas. But we're also going to take cases to trial and going to prosecute those cases all the way through to trial. We're not going to overcharge and then plead down. We're going to charge what we can prove at trial. I believe that I can reallocate the resources in my office to target these crimes and to achieve the things that I am promising that I can achieve. And I won't know, obviously, for 4 years until I'm up for re-election again. But I really believe that the resources that are presently there can be used to bring the crime rate down. I want to have a good gun buyback program that gets some guns off the street, and I think that would help.
Mr. Scales, Congress long ago eliminated bails from the federal pretrial release system. In the state system, presently, your ability to avoid pretrial detention may, at least for a time, depend upon your ability to pay a bond. Would you seek that other alternative bail arrangements and misdemeanor and felony prosecutions to eliminate this disparity? Why or why not?
Of course, yes, I do. That's one of the benchmarks of my platform, is to end cash bail. Right now, there are way too many people sitting in the detention center right now because they can't afford $100, because they can't afford to bond themselves out. And our bonds are just way too high. And the only people that really benefit from that are the bail bond industry, who have been coming at me with both barrels. And they're telling me that I'm going to be endangering public safety, and the only people that are really going to be endangered under my administration are going to be the bail bonds industry. I want to put them out of business. I think they're predatory. I think that the only thing that they're good at is collecting that non-refundable fee. Too many families in this county are forced to make a choice between leaving their loved ones in prison or in jail pre-trial before conviction, or mortgaging the house 3 or 4 times to pay that non-refundable fee. If 10% is, you're paying 10% to a bondsman is enough to ensure public safety and to ensure the person comes back to court, then the bond itself is 90% too high.
So, Mr. Williams, let me pose the opposite side of that question. How do you sort between those people who have a $100,000 bond because they're dangerous, and the people that Mr. Scales is mentioning who have a $100,000 bond because they can't come with a $10,000? How does your office go through that process?
Well, we don't sort that. every bond that's imposed is imposed by a judge. In Buncombe County, we have pretrial services. And when a judge goes to set bond, it's not just some willy-nilly guess as to what's appropriate. There's everybody who's in custody should be placed in custody because there's some flight risk, history of failure to appear in court, or public safety danger. Now, we have taken action over the last 4 years, 3.25, to reduce the incarceration rate here in Buncombe County. We're down about 8% right now. We have an early dismissal program where we look at folks every day there are folks who are locked up on Class 3 misdemeanors, little, broken windows and fences, if you will, public urination, where, they might have 50-some failures to appear in their background. They get locked up. We dismiss it early in the morning after they've sobered up or whatever. We also have, through the Justice Resource Center, the Justice Resource Advisory Committee, just begun. Mecklenburg County has an innovative program. They got a MacArthur grant to do a lot of statistical analysis. They reduced their jail population in Mecklenburg County. We're going to do that here. And in those discussions, I proposed moving for misdemeanor cases, nonviolent misdemeanor cases. We're not talking about domestic violence or DWI, but we're talking about moving from a warrant system to a criminal summons system where folks will be given a court date, and if they come, they stay out of custody. We don't want to create a situation where on a misdemeanor larceny, the court has no power to basically ensure that someone comes to court. So that's something to be very careful about.
Mr. Williams, our time is running out. So I want to end this on a positive note. There has been a rising tide of youth activism across the country in recent months. Many people, including my own son, will be casting ballots for the first time, stepping up into this role of democracy as an actual voter. What would you say directly to these young people regarding your candidacy and regarding your roles as district attorney?
Well, I'd ask your son to enthusiastically vote. It's only been 3 years that we've endeavored and started this endeavor of really transforming our justice system here in Buncombe County. In 2014, I ran under the banner of fairness, integrity, and justice. We had seen folks convicted on bad evidence, folks convicted all white juries. It was time for transformative action here in Buncombe County. We've just now put together the programs that are revolutionizing the way we provide wraparound services for victims, and also create a courthouse that is a place for recovery, opportunity, and justice. We're going to continue to do that work. I'm a board-certified specialist in criminal law. I have the depth of experience as having worked on both sides of this courtroom, at that table, and this table, trying DWIs, trying first-degree murders. I have the experience. I understand the position. I have a 5-year-old daughter. She can't vote, but hopefully one day I'm going to ask for you all to vote for me May 8th, ToddWaynesForDA.com. Thanks for being present and your interest.
You guys will still have a closing statement.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get there.
They're doing the closing statement for the young people.
Okay.
They have a very
Well, I have a
short
website.
statement.
I have a website, a Facebook page, and Twitter.
Mr. Steele, the same question. I believe your son may be voting for the first time this
Yes,
year.
yes, he is. He's going to be voting absentee, and I hope he votes for me. I'm a Bernie Sanders Democrat, and one of the things that Bernie Sanders was able to do for the Democratic Party is bring in a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of the youth to become engaged in the process. I've had this is the second time I've run for this office, and I've had more people than I can count come to me and tell me that they registered to vote just because of me. I was inspiring enough to them that they would become engaged in the system, and that's what I want to tell to the youth. that this is an election that you can make a difference. You can bring progressive change to this office, and you can help me bring the change that you want to see happen in this office.
It's time for our closing statements. This being the only forum, this will be the last opportunity to speak to the people of Logan County together on stage for 2 minutes and try and explain to them why you feel that your candidacy is the one they should support as early voting starts today. Mr. Skills, I'll let you go first.
Okay, didn't I go first the last time? That's all right. I'm the challenger. I don't mind going first. I will just sum up and say some of the things I'm sure I've already said before, but I really want to end the guilty until proven wealthy mindset. I believe that justice should be for everybody, regardless of your economic status. And I believe that right now, poor people are unfairly targeted in our system. I want to target crimes that matter most, and I want to not target insignificant crimes. I will not prosecute a marijuana case for personal use possession, regardless of weight. I will not prosecute a cultivation case for personal use, regardless of weight. I believe that that is not any of our business, what people do personally with marijuana. I want to go after companies like the CTS Corporation and Duke Energy, who have poisoned our soil and our drinking water and our air. The District Attorney's Office has the sole prosecutorial authority over environmental crimes, and I want to take up that mantle and push forward with those cases. I want to treat addiction as a medical problem and not as a crime. I want to review past convictions and sentences. I want to bring equity and diversity into the hiring in this office. I want to improve transparency through the data portal that I was talking about. And I want to bring this progressive criminal justice reform to heal, empower, and unite the community. Thank you.
Well, I'm running a campaign where we're not relying on hashtags and buzzwords. We have a record of true reform, creating new programs that have broadened our ability to do justice, to do many of the things that my opponent says he would do, we have actually done. So I'm going to ask for your support. I'm going to ask for your support May 8th. I'm a lifelong Democrat. This is a Democratic primary. I have the support of other Democrats who run county-wide, including Sheriff Van Duncan, who are very sad that he is retiring. But it will be important to maintain stability in a very key office in the justice system, in the District Attorney's Office. In addition to that, I have an endorsement. I'm very satisfied and proud to have the endorsement of Clerk Steve Cockburn, who we work with very closely here in the courthouse, and Register of Deeds through Reisinger. These are all Democrats who run county-wide and know the quality of this office's work and our commitment to integrity, fairness, and justice.
Thank you, sir. With all the power that is exerted in this courtroom, this is the criminal courtroom that has held so many legal cases over the last 100 years. And that judge who usually sits up there and all the power they have, all the power that is exerted in this room is nothing compared to the power that each of you have. You have the power to vote. So we're glad that we were able to host this forum, and we thank each and every one of you for attending and being part of this process. And most of all, we thank the candidates, both of the district attorney's race and the sheriff's race, for participating in this great legacy of American democracy.